Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Book 4, Episode 2, or Chapter 2, or whatever you want to call it, of Infinity Train. And yeah, the first episode of this final season was impressive. Probably the best first episode of any of these seasons. The amount of depth and storytelling it gave us for these characters, Mingi and Ryan, was impressive. Like, seriously, shockingly impressive. It went into basically their story together as best friends whose parents met in the maternity ward and stuff. They grew up together and yeah, were very, very close to the point where they were even forming a band together. However, they started to drift apart into two different directions. While Ryan kind of stayed this rebellious rock star kind of personality, even to the point of having all these partners who would abandon him and everything, and kind of, you know, living out of his van, it seemed, for a while until he ended up giving that away. Mingi, meanwhile, was dealing with a lot of pressure to succeed, a lot of pressure to kind of adhere to these ideals of further education and whatnot, which led him into kind of abandoning Ryan for the pursuit of that higher education. And the two of them had a falling out because of this, and because Ryan himself was too pushy about things without, getting Mingi's opinion on it first. They both had some issues with that. Let's just put it that way. And because of that, they fell apart and split up for at least a year. It's very much implied that it was at least a year. Don't know if it was too much longer than that, but yeah. They finally get back together while Mingi working at a diner he and Ryan used to go to. Ryan comes in and tells them about this train ticket to New York. They can go fulfill their dream and everything. But Mingi is not really having it anymore. He's moved on and is trying to make a life for himself outside of music. Ryan steals the keys to the diner, lures him to the train, and that's when they go from one train to the Infinity Train. So that's interesting. I'm wondering where this is going to go and how their story is going to kind of wrap up. Like, I'm already thinking about the ending. How is their story going to close? Are they going to find this closure and finally just, talk to each other and get things figured out? Or is it going to maybe even have a darker ending? Who knows? With this series, who fucking knows? After last season, Jesus. But I am very excited to find out, because again, that was such a strong opener. And I really hope that the rest of the season kind of follows that as well. But we'll see. We'll see. Either way, we're going to get this started and hope for the best. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I was looking up some of the, one of the voices, really, just Kez's voice at the end there. I would have looked up more, but I got the answer for Carrie Walgren. I was looking up, especially, most notably, Kez's voice. Minty Lewis. And so it's like, do I know your voice from here? I'm unsure. Apparently, she was in regular shows. She was a character, like, I hadn't gotten that far. But I know who the character is. But she's also a writer. And most notably, she wrote like 30 episodes of regular show, 4 episodes of Close Enough, and most notably for me, she wrote 2 of the season 1 episodes of Centaur World. Fragile Things and Holes Part 2. Which means she was the writer for Buff Glendale. And that's amazing. There was good writing in Fragile Things too. That was the episode where, well, the song Fragile Things first came from and all. With Wamawink and Horse fighting over basically control of the group. And I believe that's the one with the tornado as well. So that's fun. I think that's episode 2 of the show, actually. But yeah, so let's actually talk about this episode. So Mingy and Ryan arrive on the train and are awoken to find Kez, a talking bell. A talking bell that's also floating with pixie magic, apparently. And they find themselves embroiled in a feud that's already going on between Kez and some parka denizens, whose appearances change based on the era that the car is currently in. Because the car has apparently it has a dial that when turned changes the era, which in turn changes the biological DNA of the denizens within. These parka denizens are originally like typical looking alien figures in their normal time, but if you change the time period, they can turn into all kinds of things. Like in the Ice Age, they're these fish-like figures. In the Volcanic Age, they're husks. In the Jungle Age, they're gorillas, and so on and so forth. And so yeah, it allows this car to play around with the ideas of, different eras in one location and all. You even get to see the far future where everything's been wiped out and is now a desert, and there's this collective consciousness of giant floating eyeballs running around, and it's like, what the hell? But with Kez's help, Mingy and Ryan get out of the car and realize where they're at. Like, Kez tries to explain it, but is terrible at explaining shit. Though they do find out about the numbers and everything thanks to her, and are told, and we get confirmation, I don't think we had confirmation on this before, but that the Infinity Train is running in a pocket dimension. That this world we see, and have seen since season 1 with the red, like, wasteland and everything, and the cockroach dogs and all, this is a legitimate pocket dimension. And we still don't have all the answers on as to, like, who initially created the train, or what it's like. Well, we kind of know its purpose in a way, but like, there's so many questions left unanswered. Because I don't think Amelia created it. No, she just discovered it and ended up, like, taking over as conductor from 1-1. So it's like, what is the truth behind this? I wonder if we'll get that. Because, again, the pocket dimension info is kind of big information here. But in the end, Mingy and Ryan still consider themselves best friends, even despite them having not seen each other before this for a while, and all the fighting they do. And as I said in the reaction, the fact that they see this as normal is kind of the problem and the reason they're here. It's not normal for best friends to treat each other like this, to fight like this. And they need to realize that's what they need to do here. They need to come to terms with the fact that they've both been heading down the wrong path in terms of their relationship to each other, and that they need to actually talk shit through and figure things out between them. So this is definitely going to be interesting with the dynamic between their characters and how they're going to interact with others. Kez is an interesting deuteragonist so far to them. She seems very airheaded, but not like the comical airheaded you see in a lot of like characters like, I don't know, Starfire from Teen Titans. She's airheaded more in the fact that she doesn't seem to know how to explain anything, seems to forget to mention certain things, and just seems kind of spacey. Like she's not all there half the time. She just seems to like be very out of it. You know? And I'm not saying that is a bad thing for her. I'm just saying like that's what I notice when I see her character here. We've had companion characters in previous seasons, so it's not something new that we'd have someone like Kez here. She's just, I'd say, the most interesting outside of Hazel. Because obviously, once we found out what Hazel is, she definitely became the most interesting. And that's hard to surpass. But Kez, in terms of personality, is the most unique, I would say. Because Hazel was a little girl. Not really much to speak of there. You had others like Atticus, and he's just this really fancy dog. And it's like, I like these other companions, but then you have Kez, and it's like, her personality is a lot different and a lot more interesting to me. Just with the fact that she's so airheaded and ridiculous, but also acts like they're the weird ones for not knowing. But also mentions like constantly like, oh, it's weird that there's two of you here at the same time from the same place. That's weird. This is weird. And it's like, you're kind of weird. And I don't mean that as an insult. I'm just saying. This is, again, it's going to probably be an interesting dynamic to see how this all goes through. But I'm definitely interested. This was another good episode, and it was basically just the episode for first impressions. Our characters' first impressions to the car, or to the train and everything. So, I actually want to check something real quick here. There are 10 episodes in this season. Okay, that's what I wanted to check. So I'm just interested to see how the pacing's going to go in this as well. Because I feel like there's a lot that they could do for this. I mean, first episode was just giving us background on these characters, and they only reached the train at the very end. Second episode now has been just basically their first reactions to the train and the first car. So going from there, it's going to be interesting to see what more is done in that regard. This is also, interestingly enough, the first time since book one that we focused on characters coming into the train. Have you noticed that? Like book one, Tulip comes onto the train, but book two centers mostly on Lake, who was already a denizen of the train. Yeah, you had the other guy whose name I cannot remember at the moment. Um, but he was honestly a secondary character to Lake. Lake was the main character of book two. Um, and not an that while there was plenty that was gone into with his character and his background and everything, I feel like because he was the secondary protagonist, he did definitely take a back seat to Lake. And then book three centered around characters who, while yes, they had come onto the train, had already been there for a long time. And then Hazel as well, who, as we know, is a clone of Amelia's ex, or not ex, but Amelia's boyfriend who died. And so it's like this is the first time where we're following main characters who come onto the train as part of the story right from the beginning. Rather, the only thing close is the second season, where again we had the one kid who had come on, but again he wasn't the main character, so it's a different dynamic there. Um, so that's really interesting to me. I wonder what the creators would have done if the show had continued, if there had been a fifth season or whatnot. There's just so many possibilities with this. But either way, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of Infinity Train Book 4? And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.